Gentlemen, what is going on today? My name is Ryan Mickler, and I am the host and the founder of the Order of Man podcast and movement. Welcome here. Welcome back. It's good for me to get back into the swing of things. I've been out for the past couple of weeks on some hunts, and I've got a few more hunts coming up. Hunting has actually become a pretty big part of my life, especially during the fall. And as much as I don't like being away, I don't like being away from my family. I don't like being away from the business, because these are obviously two things I'm highly invested in. It is nice to be able to go down a path and find a pursuit and a hobby and an interest that not only makes me more self-reliant as a man, but just something I enjoy. So I appreciate you bearing with me over the past couple of weeks in my absence. Obviously, we've had my co-host for the Ask Me Anything podcast, Kip Sorensen, fill in for the past couple of weeks, and he's done a phenomenal job. And within our exclusive brotherhood, the Iron Council, we've had Kip and other team leaders step up, and I appreciate them being willing to do so. One of the hard things for me is delegation. I've always struggled with delegation, and if you're anything like me, you have too. You think you can do it better. You want to be involved, obviously, and so delegating tasks to other individuals becomes a challenge. But I've been fortunate enough to surround myself with high caliber men who I have a lot of faith and trust in. And so if you're tuning in and you've helped me in some way continue to lead the movement in my absence, I appreciate you. Guys, if you're just tuning in for the first time, this is your Friday field notes. You're going to hear some thoughts and ideas that I have. I know what I'm going to share with you today is going to be very polarizing. A lot of you guys are going to agree, adamantly agree. And a lot of you are going to adamantly disagree. So this presents a very clear opportunity to have a civil discussion. I had actually made a post in my on my Instagram account several days ago about the COVID agenda, as far as I see it, and it triggered a lot of discussion. Most of it, 99% of it, was very respectful, which, quite honestly, I was a little bit surprised. Had a couple guys say, well, we're going to leave because you said this. And that's fine. I wish those individuals nothing but the best. But for the most part, everybody was pretty, even in disagreement, pretty civil. And that's one thing I am working on. I think it's something that most of us as men can do a little bit better job at, is just maintaining our emotional, I don't know how to say it, our emotional posture. I think that's the best way to say it. You're not going to be broken down. You're not going to be rash or sling the insults. You're maintaining your emotional posture. And that's something I'm working on. It's something I've struggled with in the past, quite frankly, because I get, offended and I feel slighted, and I take those things personally. But that is something I'm working on, because I think it makes us a better men, just to be able to have some level of emotional intelligence. And so that is something I'm working on, and I would encourage you guys to work on as well, especially in disagreement. And there's a lot to disagree about in society today, isn't there? Primarily, not even primarily, but one of the big factors is the COVID response. I know a lot of you guys listening are going, again, to agree, and a lot of you guys are going to disagree, but man, what a great opportunity to have a real conversation. And that's what I want to do. I want to have real conversations. I don't want to have safe conversations. I don't want to talk about things that are comfortable to talk about. I don't want to talk about things that all of us are necessarily in agreement with, because what's the benefit in that? If we all agree, all we're doing is preaching to the choir. There's no benefit to that. It doesn't test us. It doesn't push us. It doesn't stretch us to think differently, to consider a different viewpoint. So I want to talk about the quote-unquote unsafe things, the things that most people don't want to talk about because it represents a threat to their own beliefs, to their own existence, to their own perspectives. That's what I want to talk about. And that's what this is going to be today, because we're going to talk about the COVID agenda. So in the post that I made on Instagram the other day, I said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but I said essentially that it's clear to me at this point that the COVID agenda, the COVID response, is nothing more than a thinly veiled excuse to undermine and dismiss three crucial areas of our lives as men. That is our religious institutions, and I'm not talking about any denomination in particular. I'll get into that in a minute. That's our family unit, you as the patriarch of your home and small businesses. I know a lot of you guys listening own small businesses. I own a small business. You work for a small business. And I think the COVID agenda at this point, the response is designed, deliberately and intentionally designed to undermine and root away religious institutions, the family unit, and small businesses. Not coincidentally, and I said this in the post that I made on Instagram, not coincidentally, those are three of the largest threats against the overreaching desire for the government to rule every aspect of our lives. Now, I don't consider myself to be a conspiracy theorist. I believe that I'm pretty grounded. I believe that I'm willing to, for the most part, look at both sides. I try to be level-headed. I try to look at all information and make the best decision for myself and my family and the people I have a responsibility for. So I don't get wrapped up in conspiracy theories. But a lot of you listening might think to yourself, well, what you're talking about is a conspiracy. And maybe that's the case, maybe it isn't. But I honestly believe that the government would love nothing more than to be our daddy, to control every facet of our life, to control production, to control the means of production, to control the way that we think, the way that we behave, the way that we act. I think there's a very clear agenda to move this forward. And I think COVID is a big part of that. Now, let me be very clear on this. I believe COVID is a real thing. So everything that I'm going to talk with you about today is not to undermine or dismiss the fact that COVID exists, that it is a threat we ought to be aware of, that there is a danger to certain demographics of our population. All of that is true. But also, what a convenient opportunity for the government to wrestle control of our lives. I wrote a book 2.5 years ago now called Sovereignty, The Battle for the Hearts and Minds of Men. And every day that passes in the wake of COVID and everything else, that book becomes more and more relevant. Men, you need to maintain your sovereignty, the control over your own life. And that doesn't mean you can't give it away to God, that you can't worship Jesus or whoever you decide to worship. That's a whole other conversation. We'll get into that later. It just means that you're making your decisions, your own decisions, based on what you think is best for yourself, your family, your loved ones, and the people that you have a responsibility for. That might be your coworkers, your colleagues, your friends, your neighbors, the people in your church congregation, wherever you're showing up as a leader. You have a responsibility for those individuals, and you need to maintain your sovereignty in order to control not only yourself, but to give those people what it is they're looking for from you as your leader. And that's what the government wants to do. And sometimes that works very well for us, and sometimes it's at direct odds with our own well-being. And again, I want to reiterate that I don't believe COVID is a fake thing. Now, that said, I don't believe it's as dangerous or destructive as those who would love to be in power would have us believe. But I believe it is being used and wielded as a tool for manipulation and control, specifically, again, with our religious institutions, our family units, and our small businesses. And the reason I say this, and the reason I'm talking about this, is because those three things are the foundation, the very foundation of the fabric of society, especially a healthy, thriving, free, liberated society. I mean, it's where we go, specifically with religious institutions and family units, it's where we go in turn to build our foundational operating system for the way that we will live our lives, right? Isn't that where you learn about morality and virtue? Isn't that where you go to learn about hard work and commitment and dedication and sacrifice and honor? Don't you go to your religious institutions and your family to learn those things? As a young man, I learned from my mother about how to be a good and decent human being, how to work hard, how to sacrifice, how to commit, how to be disciplined, how to just thrive in life. What's the difference between right and wrong? I turn to the Bible and I turn to our bishops and our pastors, and they taught me about what was right and what was wrong and how to live a noble and virtuous life. I learned about these things. And by the way, I also learned about being independent, being sovereign, That you and I as men have control over our thoughts and our ideas and our actions and our behaviors, and they will lead to productive outcomes or destructive outcomes based on the way that we perform. And that we're responsible. We're responsible for the way that we perform. We're responsible for the way that we show up and for what we do and what we believe and how we perform and how we act. And there's consequences, both positive and negative, to the way that we show up. That if you do right, you will be rewarded. Whether that's additional income, whether that's romantic relationships, whether that's job promotions and financial achievements and career aspirations, you will be rewarded when you do what is right. And when you and I make poor decisions, we will suffer the negative consequences of doing wrong. Losing a job, declaring bankruptcy, going through a divorce. That's the natural way of life. And yet we have the government who would love to tell you that you don't have to be responsible for your decisions. You don't have to be responsible for your choices. And what a shame. What a shame when we rob ourselves and the people that we care about the opportunity of pain and suffering and learning from their consequences. Man, I've made some dumb decisions, from drug and alcohol use and abuse to business failures and setbacks, to struggling with the way that I led my wife and communicated with her. Mistakes all along the path, and yet every single one of those has been an opportunity for me to learn through direct and immediate and sometimes painful feedback what works and what doesn't. And so it's nice to think that, maybe there's some entity like the government who can come in and swoop in and rescue us from all our problems, but it comes with an expense. It comes with a cost. And that cost is your freedom. I had somebody on this Instagram post that I made the other day, and they said, again, I'm paraphrasing here because I don't have it pulled up right now, but they said something to the extent of, most people aren't responsible enough to take care of themselves, so isn't this a good thing? And I thought, man, what a dangerous ideology. I believe in the power of human beings. I believe in the power of individuality, if I can say that, and responsibility. I believe in those things. And what a dangerous proposition to say, well, there's so many people who can't take care of themselves, so shouldn't the government do something about it? No. Guess who should do something about it? Because look, I'll tell you, man, there's people who are beat up and downtrodden and lack the mindset to grow and to thrive and to succeed in this life. There are those people. I'm not delusional enough to believe or think that there aren't those people. There are. So whose responsibility are those people? Not the government's, guys. It's not the government. You know whose responsibility it is? Their families, their communities, the businesses they work with, their churches. That's whose responsibility is. If I have a neighbor who's struggling financially, it's my responsibility to help that individual. That might not mean financial contributions, although it could. It might just mean that I go over and mow their lawn, or that I, buy some toys for their kids at Christmas. That's my responsibility. That's your responsibility as a man. The government can't do it as well as you. And so again, look, COVID is a real thing. Again, I don't think it's as dangerous as it's being made out to be, but it's a real thing. But that said, I think it's being overused as a tool to manipulate and coerce and subjugate us and have us be more and more dependent on the state in order to achieve what it is that we want. And we learn those things through our religious institutions, through our family units, and ultimately through our ability to provide for our families and loved ones through our small businesses. I mean, you tell me why Walmart can stay open, but the mom and pop shop, the archery shop, for example, that I go to, can't stay open. Or the gym that I go to can't stay open, or they have to close at a certain time. You tell me why it's more important that one company stay open and not another. Oh, because they're essential? Well, who are you to dictate to me what is essential? You don't get to decide that for me. I get to decide that for me. And I'm not telling us to go out and be reckless. I'm telling you that you need to decide for yourself what's going to be in your best interest and the best interest of the people that you care about. And look, I believe every business has the right every religious institution has the right to decide how they're going to respond to this COVID thing. So if a business, for example, decides that they want to enforce wearing masks or social distancing or occupancy limits, then fine, that's their prerogative. That's their prerogative. That's their choice. And you get to decide whether or not you patronize that business. You know, I went into the grocery store, the convenience store the other day, and the lady at the register said, whoa, 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 whoa. She put her hands up. She's like, whoa, 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 whoa. You need a mask to be in here. And I said, thank you very much. And I walked out the door. And I went down the road and I patronized a store that didn't require me to wear a mask. Now, some of you guys are going to say that's reckless. It doesn't matter. Okay. The idea is that I get to make my own decisions and you get to make your own decisions. So I'm not going to patronize stores that force me to wear a mask. That's their decision. And that's also my decision. But you get to decide. Nobody gets to decide for you. That's the point of sovereignty. Nobody gets to decide for you. And I'm sick and tired of having a government institution or some power that would be tell me how I have to live my life. Now, some of those things are prudent. Some of you guys will say, well, you know, governments mandate that you wear a seatbelt. Sure, they do, but that's also my decision. Because I recognize that if I get in a car crash on the way to and from wherever it is I'm going, that wearing a seatbelt is likely to keep me alive. But that's my decision. I decide to do that. And some of you will say, well, that's a bad analogy because you wearing a seatbelt doesn't impact somebody else. Well, let's just take the car driving for an example. Every day you get in the car, you put somebody else at risk. You do. Statistically, you put other people at risk. And yet you don't not drive a car. You do what you need to do to maintain your safety, defensive driving, right? Being aware, being alert, situationally aware, looking at what's going on and how it's going to impact you. And I get it. Some of you guys will say that's a bad analogy. It's an analogy, which means it isn't perfect, but there's a lot of similarities. But ultimately, you have to decide what's going to work best for you. And I think stores and religious institutions and small businesses should decide for themselves. And by the way, if you're afraid, or you don't want to expose yourself to COVID, I can respect that. I can appreciate that. That's your decision. It's not my decision to make. That's your decision to make. You're a capable human being. So if that's what you're afraid of, then you stay at home. You shelter in place. You do what you need to do to protect yourself and your family. But don't you dare tell me what I need to do. And some people will say, because I had a lot of people comment, oh, this is selfish. This is selfish. You know what? It's no more selfish than a government body telling a small business that they have to close or shutting down entire swaths of the economy that we know, for example, schools, for example, are not a huge center for transmission of the disease. And yet we're going to shut schools down. Tell me why. Tell me why. Oh, believe science. Trust science. Okay. Show me the data that supports that schools need to be shut down. I just heard Andrew Cuomo talk about, the data, and again, I'm paraphrasing. The data doesn't support that we need to shut schools down, but we made an agreement. An agreement. What? So you're telling me the data and the science doesn't support that schools are the major transmission of disease, and yet you made an agreement? This is the perception of safety, not safety itself. People feel better, right? You're wearing a mask. You feel better. It doesn't really help, but you feel better. So I don't think government institutions should come in and say, we're going to shut down entire swaths of the economy, even if the science doesn't support it. Or that you have to tell a small business that they have to close, and yet these big businesses can maintain their doors because they're a quote-unquote essential business. Walmart is no more essential than the mom-and-pop grocery store. It's not. It's not. Or that businesses have to close at a certain time, because the virus has a bedtime. Like, why should a business, for example, a gym, have to close at 10 o'clock? What kind of sense does that make? That doesn't make sense to me. That's not rooted in science. Number one, at 10 o'clock, from probably 10 to 6, I imagine, or 5, somewhere in there, is probably the slowest time for a gym. which means that social distancing will naturally take place because less people are there. And the virus doesn't have a bedtime. So why can a company or a business stay open from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m., but they have to close their doors at 10? Ridiculous. Stupid. Moronic. Again, I'm not suggesting the virus doesn't exist. I'm saying that our response to the virus, I say our, I'm talking about collectively and from a government perspective, is ludicrous. It's insane. It's asinine. And yet we bought into it. And the inevitable result is more subjugation, more towing the line, more doing what we're told, more believing that the government can swoop in and save us and rescue us from all of our problems. It can't. And even if it can, it will do it inferior to the way that we can do it for ourselves and the way we should be doing it for our communities. So what do we do about this, guys? I mean, that's a real question, right? Okay, so some of you have stuck around and you're fully on board with what I'm sharing. And some of you are like, okay, Ryan's full of crap, and you've already tuned out. And if you have, you won't hear this next part. But that's fine. For those of you who are still around, what do we do about it? That's the question. Here's a couple of solutions. And I don't have it all laid out. I'm kind of just spitballing a little bit here and shooting off the hip a little bit with this conversation. But here's what we do. Patronize only those businesses who you support. You know, I'm sick of seeing signs all around Maine that say, I'm sorry, we would love to wear masks or not make you wear masks, but we have to have you wear a mask because Janet Mills requires it. Man, take some freaking ownership. Take some ownership. We require masks because we think it's safe. I can respect that. I can respect that. If a business said, hey, we require you to wear a mask and we'd like no more than 10 people in the store because we feel like that's going to be safer for you, I can actually get behind that and respect that. And then I can make a decision. Do I believe that? Do I honor that? Do I patronize this store or do I go next door? But I'm so sick of seeing stores that say, well, you know, Governor Mills says that we have to do it, so we have to do it. Bullshit. Bullshit. You decide as a business owner. Have some balls. Have some testicular fortitude. Hey, we made this decision on our own, and this is what we're going to do. Cool. I respect it. May not patronize you for one reason or the other, but I respect it. Don't blame it on somebody else. So for me, and I would encourage you to do this, is let's continue to patronize stores that we believe in. I've never been a big fan of the boycott thing. You know, I think that's an adult version of a temper tantrum. I don't like the boycott thing. But there's certain stores that I choose because I like them better. Whether it's the way they treat me. You know, I've been in stores and they treat me like an asshole. I'm not going to go back to that store. I'm going to go to the place next door where they treat me respectfully and kindly and service my needs. Like, that's where I'm going to go. So it isn't about boycott. It's about finding the stores that align with what I'm after. And if a store says, you have to wear a mask in here, well, then I'm going to kindly decline that request. And I'm going to go to the store that doesn't require me to wear a mask. Ryan, that's so selfish. No, it's not. I'm living my life. It's selfish to tell me I have to behave and act a certain way because you're uncomfortable. If you're uncomfortable, you do so. Why don't you go to the store where everybody wears masks? And that's your prerogative. And that's your right. And I'm fine with that. But to dictate what everybody else does, no, I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with that. So let's start patronizing the stores with some balls. That could be run by men or women, by the way. You guys understand what I mean. Stores with some balls that can stand behind what they believe. Let's not acquiesce to these orders that don't make any sense, like close your doors at 10 o'clock in the evening. No. If I'm a 24-hour gym, for example, I'm going to leave my gym open, if I so choose, for 24 hours. And you're not going to tell me whether I can or can't open and when I can open and all that kind of thing. If you decide on your own that you want to close at 10, great. If you decide you want to close at 4 or 5 in the afternoon and spend the rest of your time with your family, I commend you, I honor you, I respect that. I may not patronize your business because it doesn't work for me, but I respect that. I don't respect you doing it because somebody else told you to do it, and then you blame it on them. Well, you're a grown-ass adult. Take some responsibility. Hey, we're doing it this way because we feel this is best. Okay. Or we're doing it this other way because this is what we feel is best. Great. I'll make my decision based on what you believe and based who I think is best going to serve me. So, start patronizing stores that believe in what you believe. Don't patronize those other stores because you know what? There's going to be some pressure. There's pressure from the government. I think there's also some pressure from the consumer. There needs to be some accountability. There needs to be some responsibility here. And if these stores don't see the type of growth or the type of revenue they would like because they're mandating certain things, then they'll feel the pressure of that. And they should feel the pressure of both sides so they can make their own decisions. If you're a business owner, you decide, am I going to follow this? Am I not? Because I'll tell you what, if tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of businesses across the U.S. decide, you know what, we're not going to participate in this. We're going to run our business the way we see fit and trust that our consumers, our clients, our customers are going to make the best decision for themselves. If millions of companies across the country did this, what are they going to do? What's the government going to do? Fine everybody? I mean, they'll attempt to. That's not going to go well. That's not going to go well. Continue to protest peacefully. I'm not telling everybody to get violent. I'm telling you to protest peacefully. Exercise your First Amendment rights. All of your rights. Live your life. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Live your life the way that you see fit. Here's what else I would suggest. Run for office. Somebody asked me the other day on the Ask Me Anything, is political office in my future? It's not in my immediate future, but the more I see what's going on in this country, the more I recognize and realize that at some point I'm going to need to step up within either city, county, state, or federal offices, politics. Because I'm sick and tired of these assholes running and dictating and telling everybody else what they need to do. And these people have never held, for the most part, a real job in their life where they've actually had to add value. And they've had to let people vote with their dollars whether or not the value they offer to society is worth it or not. They mooch and they steal and they squat on other people's taxes. I'm sick and tired of that. I want people who know what it's like to run a business, know what it's like to run a family, know what it's like to struggle, to have to adapt and evolve and grow because what they currently offer isn't valuable to people because they haven't paid for it. I've been in that situation. I've told you guys, the first event we ever ran, I put a sizable deposit on a lodge in southern Utah, and not a single person showed up. So did I force or mandate that somebody had to pay me because I was trying really hard? That's not how it works. I went back to the drawing board and I said, okay, well, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? How can I fix this? And I fixed it, and I had 20 guys show up to the next event, and they paid me to be there. And my goal was that I would provide more value to them than the value they paid me, which was the dollars they paid me. That it was a mutually agreeable transaction. I think everybody who came, the 20 men who came to that event, would agree that it was. Many of them came back as proof that it was valuable to them. But I had to figure that out the hard way. I had to lose money and time and energy and sleep to figure that out. There wasn't any sort of continual income stream. I didn't get my nice little paycheck on the 1st and 15th of every month just because I was trying really hard. No, I had to add real value, and people had to vote with their pocketbook. I want men who have served in the military, who have sacrificed everything, their entire lives, their families, their businesses, their other ventures, their other interests and hobbies and activities. Men who have sacrificed those things to be the ones who step up into leadership because they're making decisions on behalf of other men and women who will have to make those same decisions for themselves. And isn't it convenient for you to write off 10, 20, 100,000 men and women to war when you don't have to personally deal with the sacrifice of their commitment? We have a bunch of spineless cowards who have done nothing in their life, running and dictating what we will do as American citizens. So men, we need to step up. Serve on your school board, coach your kids, serve in the city council, get elected as mayors and governors, politicians, legislators, president, senators, congressmen. Let's get an army of men inside of these offices who understand what individual sovereignty means and spend more time focusing on leveling the playing field than trying to dictate and coerce and manipulate so that everybody gets their quote-unquote fair share. I just want to clear the path. I want to be the bulldozer. I'm going to clear a path for you, every American citizen, to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's what our forefathers wanted. That's what they sacrificed for. That's what they fought and bled and died for. That's what I want for you. That's what I want for our country. That's what I want for my kids. And again, this COVID agenda is all designed to strip any individual sovereignty and liberty away. Again, not that the COVID doesn't exist, but that it's being used as a convenient and thinly veiled excuse to wrestle control over our individual lives. Don't let it happen, gentlemen. Make yourself strong physically, mentally, emotionally. Get your health dialed in. Get your finances dialed in. Build up your provisions. Run for office. Patronize businesses that believe in the same things that you believe in. Vote with your dollars in your pocket. Get out and vote these politicians who are doing a horrible job out of office and vote the right kind of men into office. This is what we need to do. To be engaged. And I said this in the post, before it's too late. Before we're tied, our hands are tied, to be able to act and do what is right. This is a very convenient opportunity for the powers that would be to wrestle control away from religious institutions, family units, and small businesses. Those are the three pillars of society that I believe will radically and drastically and positively impact and alter the course in which we live our lives. Family unit first, religious institutions second, small businesses third, in no particular order, and all just as powerful. And we as men, individual sovereign men, have a responsibility to step into these callings. We won't be intimidated. We won't be manipulated or coerced. We won't be threatened to honor and uphold our Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, that we can speak freely, that we can worship the way that we see fit, that we have a right to defend ourselves and the people that we care about. These are all crucial and gradually and systematically are being stripped away. Now, some of you will say I'm overreacting. I actually hope that I am. I hope that I'm overreacting. I don't think I am, but I hope that I am. Because I don't want to see this country come to a point where socialism and even communism and Marxism is embraced. I don't want to get to that point. Oh, Ryan, we'd never get to that point. Bullshit. Famous last words right there. Oh, no, we're not going down that route. Let's ensure that we don't. Let's be smart. Let's be safe. Let's acknowledge and recognize COVID for what it is. Let's put the right people in the right positions so that we can deal with this. But let's not lose our minds. Let's not lose our freedoms. Let's continue to believe in the power of the human spirit, that each individual, barring some sort of mental illness, is capable of deciding for themselves. And even if they aren't, let's protect those people. Let's protect our vulnerable. Let's protect our elderly. And let's the rest of us get back to work. All right, guys, that's what I got for you today. Leave comments. I don't even need to tell you leave comments on this one. You guys are going to leave your comments, positive and negative, and anywhere in between. But let me know. Let's finish the conversation. If you're going to be a jerk about it, don't. If you're going to be respectful about it and you want to have a real conversation, let's do that. Again, that is something I'm working on. I'm not the best at it. In fact, I'm probably the worst at it. I'm trying to let my ego get out of the way. And I'm trying to respond to people positively, even in disagreement. If you're going to be a jerk, that's one thing. If you're going to disagree, cool. Let's talk about it. Civilly, respectfully, like men do. All right, guys. Please share this. It's important. Got to share this episode. Share the podcast. The episode I did earlier in the week with Tank, really, man, we knocked it out of the park. I'm telling you, if you haven't listened to that one with Tank, go listen to it. Powerful, powerful stuff. In fact, I'll just tell you this. It's my highest podcast episode, single episode download day ever in the history of Order of Man. That's almost 6 years now, 5.5 years. Go listen to it. Share it. Take a screenshot. Post it on Instagram, post it on Twitter, Parler, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you're doing the social media thing, all at Ryan Mickler except for YouTube, which is at Order of Man. And let's continue this conversation. Let's be men. Let's be free men. Let's make decisions in our own best interest, free of some government restriction or mandate. You make your decisions and let the chips fall where they may. All right, guys. I'll be back next week. Until then, go out there, take action, and become the man you are meant to be.